Wayne Cannon.
I hope everybody's having a wonderful day here at Columbia. Great to be a Rotarian. I'd like to share with you a prayer that was written by a very good friend of mine, Reverend Walter Coleman. He works with the hospital system in Greenville now. Let us pray. Gift of a day. Oh Lord, we are thankful for another day of life. The unfolding of it is an adventure of great excitement and anticipation. No day like today has ever been, and never will ever be like it again. Like our lives, each day has its own character, purpose, and challenges. There are tasks to be performed, people to be seen, and lessons to be learned. As we traverse this 24-hour body of time, we can choose to be excited and active. We can let life happen unaware. We can exchange in the process and thus be fully alive to each incident. Help us to accept this gift of another day. Let us unwrap it as a special present that it is. Inspire us to know at our deepest level that in our living today, we are participating in your unfolding plan for your world, and we each have our own unique role to play. What an experience to realize that we are helping to complete creation each day we live. Bless this food now to our bodies as we go forward. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Wayne. That was lovely and very fitting today. We've got visiting Rotarians and guests, Rebecca Gummoxon. So if you've got a visiting Rotarian or guest, please let us know.
Good afternoon. It seems we don't have any visiting Rotarians, but I do believe we have a few visiting guests. So if you are here with a guest, will you please stand and introduce your guest. Or if you are here as a guest and you're a person that's not here, you can stand and do that too.
Hi, it's me, Gracie. I'm with Aaron Falami from Karen's Mobile Kitchen and Catering, and she's considering joining. So, Miss Karen.
We do have a visiting Rotarian, and I apologize, but they're online. This is the first time. So we have a Trish Ruth Strange from the Rotary Club of Northeast Shelby County. Welcome.
Welcome. Welcome to all. Thank you.
All right, that was great. Nice to have somebody online watching, appreciate it, and learning from today's special program. With Health and Happiness today, we have Russ Bell.
Thank you, Mason. To begin, today I'd like to bring to you the message from the CART Committee. Just as a friendly reminder, the blue bucket on your table. Today's message, in 1983, President Reagan declared November National Alzheimer's Disease Awareness Month. The goal was to help the public become more educated about the disease. At that time, Alzheimer's affected fewer than 2 million people in the United States, and now it is close to 6 million. About that, a threefold increase. Little did President Reagan know that he would die from Alzheimer's 21 years later. And for us to do our part, it's very simple. Just make a contribution to the blue bucket. A good bit of member news I'd like to pass along to you. Jerry Bright's wife passed away this past Friday. She was on hospice, and actually passed away at home. Gracie Stevenson brought some news to keep the family of Sarah Jones in your thoughts and prayers. She was a young lady who passed away this past week. Stephen Creech reported that today was the absolute first day that all 3 of his children were in school in the past 8 months. That is definitely celebration time. Glenn Cox's daughter Cameron earned her Eagle Scout as one of the first young women to do so. Congratulations to you. And last but not least, one of my table mates, Bruce Dyer, celebrated his 60th birthday last week. So, Wayne, your prayer mentioned how a day is so important. And in 2020, time seems to have flown by at times and has crawled at times. And that affects us all in different ways. And just to share with you a couple ideas, in early October, I needed to clean up my yard a little bit more before the cold weather hit and all that. And I was out of weed eater line. So I mentioned that to my wife, and I said, I'm going to Lowe's. And she said, why don't you just go to the Ballantyne Walmart? It's a little bit closer. So, great idea. So I got in my car. I parked right out in front of the lawn and garden section of the Walmart there in Ballantyne. And I got out. I got a primo parking place. I didn't quite understand why, but the lawn and garden section was locked. So I walked all halfway around the store, went into, I call it the general Walmart entrance, and went in, took a left, went down these cavernous counters just full of stuff. I could see the darkened sliding glass door to lawn and garden. And I strolled, I said, I'm almost to the promised land, I'm going to get that weed eater line. And when the doors opened, I walked in and I found myself in Christmas Wonderland. That's October 7th. That's impossible. I finally located one of the guys in the blue vest, and I said, sir, I came for some weed eater line. He looked at me and said, there's no way, there's none in this store. So I just sort of moseyed on out. And as I walked all the way through the store, I called my wife and said, honey, that was a great idea, but I'm going to Lowe's anyway. And you know, that's just way too early. So that's a situation where retailers are trying to compress time for us. And I did see a friend, I was sharing with some folks out at the table. You know, a lot of times Facebook has so many good ideas for sharing with everybody. The last couple of weeks as I was preparing for Health and Happiness, there was absolutely no good, funny material on Facebook until last night. I saw one of my friends posted that they found the deal of a lifetime almost. They found an Advent calendar that each day you could pull off a piece of chocolate. And so this morning, I looked at that person's Facebook page and they said, would you believe Christmas is only 3 days away? So as we consider how time flies and how time crawls, it is my encouraging word to you today, just like what Wayne was sharing with you, to make each day count. Spend it with your family, spend it with people you love, and spend it pursuing things that you truly, truly desire. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Russ. That was great. And of course, we'd have a few Christmases between now and then if we had a few of those sets of calendars. My kids and my wife love chocolate. Don't forget the buckets, as Russ mentioned. Please continue to eat, but do put on your mask once you finish. We want to make sure everybody here is comfortable being here. I did put this in my notes, but I'm going to go ahead and ad-lib. I do think it's interesting that this Columbia Rotary Club sees a lot of powerful people come through the doors and speak, including our President-elect, Joe Biden. He's been here. He captivated this audience years ago when he was running for the president against Barack Obama at the time, and he was fantastic for those of you who were here. Republican or Democrat, no one got up and left when this meeting ended, and neither did Joe. He grabbed this microphone and he walked among the entire crowd for another 20 or 30 minutes, and no one left. So, the President-elect of the United States has spoken to this club. Lindsey Graham spoke to this club, and they both got elected this time around. I'm just saying, if you want to get elected and come through this club, and I think that's pretty fitting. So I didn't want the day to go by without mentioning the fact that we do have a new President-elect for the time being, and we'll see how that goes. Name tags. Remember that the name tags, for those of you who were not here last week, is a one-way ticket. You can grab your name tag, but you cannot put it back yet. So take it, keep it, put it in your car, bring it back with you next Monday, but do not put it back. That's a COVID restriction, okay? Food packing event. Jonathan Jeffcoat is going to come up and give us a update on what's going on with the food packing event. Jonathan?
Good afternoon, everybody. I want to call it good morning, but it's past that time. Well, I just want to give you a little quick update. On December 5th at 9 a.m., we are having our food packing event here at Seawells. I'd encourage you, like Russ said, make your day count. Come out here, spend a little bit of time with us that morning. Last year we breezed through it, and we're going to pack 10,000 meals for Richland One families. So this is going to real people in our community as they need it and they reach out to Richland One. Hungry kids, hungry parents, we're making a difference here. So I'd encourage you, make that day count, December 5th, 9 a.m. Come spend just a small amount of your Saturday morning with us. Help us pack those 10,000 meals. If you got any questions, please call me, see me, see Mr. Richard Pollard, Ms. Kay Abdullah over here. They're on the committee with us, so just let us know if you have any questions, but we'd love to see you. And we'll be reaching out to you and hopefully get sign-up sheets here next week. Thanks.
Thank you, Jonathan. Y'all, that event is just a matter of time. So the more people we have, the quicker we'll have it done. It usually takes less than 2 hours, maybe 2 hours. And it's a good time and a good time to wear your new Rotary masks. Hope you'll do that. And don't forget, the proceeds from buying these masks goes to pay for that food that we're going to have for our food packing event. That's December 5th, in that morning at 9 o'clock. All right. You've received your quarterly invoices. Please pay those if you have not already. Andy Shane could not be here, got called away on assignment, but he wanted me to give you all an update on the Salvation Army bell ringing. We do have dates now. And locations. We have been given both locations of Green's Liquor Store, Green Stores. The one on Assembly Street. There's also a new one over on Garner's Ferry. It's over by the Big Lots on Garner's Ferry. I didn't even know there was one there. But our dates, we only have 8 days this year. So the dates are very important that we fill these slots. They're going to be December 9th through 17th. December 9th through 17th. And we need to fill those spots. The best way to do that, there's 2 hours time slots. The best way to do that is to go online. I think Cynthia has either got it flowing up here for the rotation, but she'll also have it in the newsletter. She had it today. I looked at it. You literally just pull up the spreadsheet and type your name in where you want to be. It couldn't be any easier, and it locks down as soon as you said you want to be where for your 2 hour time slot. Bring your kids, bring your family if they're not in school. It's hard to say no to kids. Well, everybody will be wearing masks, of course, and we'll have the Rotary bell ringing aprons and whatnot. But please go online and do that. Sign up for your slots. Yes, Past President Howe.
So, are we signing up captain or just Are there going to be captains, do you know?
I think there will be captains. I'm not positive. I didn't talk to Andy. We texted back and forth today. Here's what I would suggest to everybody who's online watching and everybody listening to my voice. Go ahead and sign yourself up. Then a captain's not going to be tapping on you to come fill his or her time slots on the days that you may not want to be there. So go right now, figure out when and where you want to do it, and go ahead and put your name in. I know somebody here, a new member who's sitting in our presence, has already done it twice. So thank goodness for her. So please go in, fill up the time slots that you want. If we get day captains and we need day captains, then we're going to have day captains calling you and saying, hey, your name's not on the list for bell ringing yet. How much like for you to sign up on my day? And that might not be a day that you want. So go ahead and sign up as soon as you can. Any other questions about bell ringing? Only 8 days, December 9th through 17th, at both Greens locations, which is always entertainment. Okay, Greens has been my preference for the years in the past. Bocce Ball Committee, don't forget that today, immediately following this meeting, Margaret, where's the meeting going to be? Here? One of these tables up front, probably that one that's not used, maybe. If you're interested in working with the Bocce Ball Bash, which will be this spring, probably at Cedar Park, Margaret Clarkson would love your involvement. Come and sit in on this committee meeting after the meeting. If you can't do it, just let her know that you want to participate and she'll get you on the committee list and dialed in to help with that event. Again, immediately following this meeting at 1:30. We will have a Discover Rotary meeting, again, for those prospective members of our club that you want to bring. It will be on December 7th, first Monday in December, 11:30. President-elect Catherine Davis has an exciting speaker that day. I'll let her tell you about that in a little while. Now we do have a few minutes. I think I've gotten everything off of my checklist. So we are going to take 2 minutes and introduce yourself to your table mates. 30 seconds per person. Tell them about yourself. Go. Okay. Hope you all got to know your table mates a little bit better now, and I want to encourage each of you to sit with new people every week. I do see a lot of the same faces sitting at the same tables every week, so try to move around a little bit. I don't want to say any names, but boy, it really is like looking at last month, basically, sort of. Okay, so try to sit with new people. We won't do that every Monday, but we will do that from time to time, as you have already found out. So, without further ado, we'll have the introduction of our speaker with President-elect Catherine Davis.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce Helen Brooks. She's an RN, which is a registered nurse. She has her master's in science of nursing education. She's also a stroke certified registered nurse, which makes her an SCRN. And she is the stroke patient educator in neuroscience administration at Prisma Health. Now, about her background, she grew up in Connecticut and worked here in Columbia at Richland Memorial Inn for several years. And she returned to Connecticut always knowing that she would return to Columbia. She has a significant background in nursing education and has even worked for the nursing board, I would say, of examiners. And Helen has cared for patients so far for more than 36 years. And having practiced for several years in nursing education and nursing simulation, she transitioned back to the bedside, providing stroke-focused education to patients, caregivers, and nurses. As a frequently requested community educator, she has provided stroke education specific to stroke types. There are many. She's talked about risk factors, and you'll hear about BFAST today. It's an acronym you'll learn about. And access to care. Her passion for educating patients, caregivers, and the community can easily be seen in her work in the development of 2 publications at Prisma Health. One is the Prisma Health Stroke Patient Education Book, and the other is the Prisma Health TIA, that's the Transient Ischemic Attack booklet, which has led to the development of many other community education materials. So, with that, please join me in welcoming our exciting Helen Brooks, patient educator.
If you can't hear me with the mask on, just let me know. As nurses, we do wear them so much now that if I walk out the house without it, I was like, what's missing? What's missing from your face? Because I'm so used to wearing it. Well, first, thank you, Catherine, and thank all of you so much for being here today. I'm actually honored to speak in front of your group. Now, I'm not Joe Biden, but I'm still excited. And I have spoken internationally about stroke, so that's exciting too. So thank you so much for having me here today. The prayer was really right on point. I think a lot of times people don't realize that they could have a stroke, so it's timely also that I'm here. So we're going to talk first about what is a stroke. And I think that just about everybody in this room has been touched by stroke in some way. Would you raise your hands if you have been? I have been. Yeah, that's a lot of people, certainly have. My great-grandmother had a stroke a long time ago. And back then, when a person had a stroke in the 70s, it was, when you came to the hospital, was, we're going to work on rehabilitation. We're going to get you to the best function that we can. We're sorry that happened to you. And that was always such a tearful thing to me, to see somebody's life change. But also the age group was different. People were in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Can you pull the microphone closer? Right, you got it.
Pull it closer. That's almost frightening. Is that better? Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, I have a hard time here.
Oh, that's all right. I can project a little better. Thank you for that. So nowadays, though, stroke has really come a long way, and it's a very exciting time in the world of stroke because people can come in with devastating disabilities and leave walking. Very, very exciting. So what is a stroke? Well, there's 2 main categories of stroke. Mostly people will hear about the ischemic stroke. You know what's hard for me too, sirs? I'm a wanderer. I wander talk. I'll be like karaoke, but you'll be sorry for that. So an ischemic stroke is the most common type. And what I don't like about ischemic stroke is, other than the fact that it happens, is that it's painless. Just all of a sudden somebody's face slides down, or their hand goes limp, or their leg starts dragging, or they lose sight. Well, that's terrible, because if it hurts, what do? If something hurts, we do what? We reach out, we cry, right? We get help. Hey, something's wrong with me. My head hurts. Hey, my back hurts, right? My feet hurt every day, right? We look for help. But in an ischemic stroke, a lot of times people won't. So if you think about the cause of it, it's really caused by a clot that stops the blood flow. So your brain is filled with a bunch of arteries that help the blood get to it, what it needs, right? So if you think about them as being little streams or rivers, and all of a sudden a tree limb falls across the river, it doesn't hurt the river or the stream, but it stops the flow. So the trees don't grow, fish don't go, it just stops, doesn't hurt it. It's the same thing in the brain. So the clot gets lodged in there, either right in the brain with somebody who, say, has diabetes or smokes. The arteries swell up and get inflamed, and the blood flow just slows itself down and blocks it off. Or it can be caused by an embolus. I know people hear a lot about atrial fibrillation. I don't know how many of you out there have it, but it's really pretty common. And I like to say that, I hear women say to me all the time, oh, my heart was a flutter. I always say, were they handsome when they walked by? Or were you just sitting there? You know, we get a flutter sometimes, but having a fluttery heart isn't normal. That's not normal. It means something irregular is happening. And when the heart gets irregular and the blood flow slows down, a clot can break loose and fly itself up into the brain and stop the blood flow. So the ischemic stroke is the most common type. But the least common type, but I think almost more devastating, is the hemorrhagic stroke. I was talking with some gentlemen earlier, and we were talking about somebody important who had a stroke related to an aneurysm. And an aneurysm is just a bulging of an artery in your brain. It could be anywhere. It could be in your abdomen, it could be on your heart, it could be anywhere. It just bulges out. It's a weakness. And then the constant pressure on it, or increased thinning of that tissue, causes it to burst open. And it really depends on where in the brain it bursts open. And that causes a hemorrhage. But hemorrhagic stroke is painful. The big reason for that is there's just so much room in our skull for our brain to fit in. So when the blood happens on the outside or in between it, it presses the brain or it pushes on the brain. It irritates the nerve endings. And the brain says, I'm in trouble. I'm giving you a headache. You're getting it now. I'm in trouble. Here's a headache. I'm going to take you down. Right? So the head hurts all of a sudden really bad. Uh-oh, there's blood in there. And as the bleeding increases, the person might just vomit for no reason. I'm standing here talking to you and all of a sudden I grab my head and start vomiting. That is not normal. That's a 911 call right away. And the vomiting, if that isn't enough, it takes you down. One of the saddest things for me to hear is when somebody says, I was talking to them and all of a sudden they grabbed their head and they went down. I'm always like, oh no, not that, because that's a hemorrhagic stroke. Now, we were also talking about access to care, and I'm going to get into that in a minute after we talk about what some of the risk factors are. So some of the biggest risk factors, and a lot of us don't even know that we are at risk, is high blood pressure. So I won't make you raise your hands on that, but I have high blood pressure, and there's a lot of heart disease in my family. But that constant pressure on the arteries, that increases the pressure in our brain, can cause our arteries to break open. The easiest thing to do is to take your medicines. Take your medicines, relax those arteries, and let your brain breathe, right? Let it relax and let it work. But what do most people not do? They don't take their blood pressure medicine. You know why? They feel fine. You ever hear people say that high blood pressure is a silent killer? That's why, because we feel fine. Because our body tries to help us out. Even though our blood pressure is high, it still keeps us functioning and going. And I bet there are a lot of high blood pressure going on in here because you all are professionals. You're all involved in busy lives. COVID certainly rose everybody's blood pressure up. We didn't know what we were going to do or how we were going to do it. So now people might have more chance of having high blood pressure than they had before, right? Another risk factor certainly is age, but I'm going to tell you a little secret. Right now, because of COVID and the inflammatory aspect of the arteries in the brain and some other underlying issues with COVID, we're seeing an increase in stroke in our 22 to 45-year-olds. Who in that age group thinks about stroke? How many people down there at USC at 5 Points are thinking about stroke? That's the farthest thing from their minds down there. Maybe the backstroke in the swimming pool or something. But they aren't thinking about a stroke at all. But they need to, right? A few months ago, I'm on the back calls, and we got a call, and I almost call them adolescents, sorry college kids, 3 boys were going down 5 Points. And one boy was the driver, and he was not drinking, no drugs, he wouldn't do it. Thank you. He was the driver, so the other 2 were in and out of the car having a grand old time. So they went into one place and they came out, and they noticed that he was slumped over. And they're like, what the heck? So they shook him, hey, we're ready to go. But he didn't respond, and when he did, his face was drooped down. 22, 23 years old, kid, face drooped down. So one of his peers says, oh no, something's not right. And I don't know how he knew it, but the kid said, I think he's having a stroke. Maybe because his grandmother had had one and he saw her face lie down. So in 5 Points, they called 911. So when the ambulance comes up, they see 2 young boys, obviously have been drinking, and a driver slumped. What do you think they think?
He's drunk.
He's drunk. Right, he's drunk. He's got to be drunk. He's got to be on drugs. Something happened to him. They give him Narcan. The kid doesn't respond. Right? So the friends were like, no, he's not drinking. We swear to you, he's not drinking. And they brought him to our hospital, and they tell their story to the doctors, and ends up that the young boy was actually having a stroke. They did a CAT scan, and he actually had a hemorrhagic stroke and from high blood pressure that he didn't know he had. So see how interesting it is? Who thinks in your 20s that that's going to happen to you? But it does. So certainly high blood pressure, atrial fibrillation or heart disease, high cholesterol, clogging up our arteries. When you think of high cholesterol, mostly we think of it in our hearts, right? People have heart attacks because their cholesterol's high, their triglycerides are high, that's not good. They have a heart attack, but cholesterol doesn't care where it goes. Doesn't care, it can go anywhere. And the heart's going to feed itself first. That's why it deposits there first. But it's going to go to the brain. And guess where it can deposit? It can deposit in the neck and up in the brain. And slow the blood flow down there too. Diabetes is another risk factor. A lot of us don't even know we have diabetes. I tell this story only because she tells it, but one of our physicians, not in the neuro department, but another department, was giving a lecture at community church. And she was talking about diabetes and hypertension in the African American population and how important it was to control it. And on her way home, she started having some trouble driving. So she pulled over and she called her husband and she said, listen, I'm having trouble driving. I can't get my foot to go to the brake and the gas pedal. I cannot get it to do it. So her husband says, call 911, where are you? And she called 911 and her blood sugar was over 600. Whoa. I know, right? She didn't know she had diabetes because her body was taking care of her. But in the meantime, guess what happens after that? Stroke can happen next, you know? So real important to know your risk factors and work on them. In your packets that you have a little sheet here that has information about risk factors on it. Everybody knows smoking is a big risk factor. It is for everything. And in our college area, our college students, we've got them drinking, doing Adderall, doing other drugs that increase the pressure in their brain. It's really unfortunate in that age group that can bother them. So now that we know what a stroke is and we know what some risk factors are, let's talk about what the symptoms are. And I have the BFAST here. And I'm proud to say that our hospital was one of the first in this whole region to go to BFAST. And the reason for that is each one of those letters stands for something. And the BE part is the cerebellum, the posterior strokes that frequently get missed. So our cerebellum sits underneath our ear. And the cerebellum is all about balance, Keeps you straight and steady. But in that cerebellum, if you're having a stroke, you wouldn't know it unless the person started to walk, because they would bump around. And we have some other little tests we do. But it gets missed a lot, right? Especially, sorry ladies, if you happen to be over 60 and you come in and you're dizzy and you don't feel right, you're gonna get your urine checked and you're gonna have a bladder infection. I'm sorry, that's what it is. But in reality, it isn't. It's a stroke. So we're really expanding our reach to look at that a little bit differently. Instead of following a preset algorithm of what we see, to looking at what else could it be. So here, B stands for balance or dizzy, like you got off a ride. I'm not dizzy right now, but if all of a sudden that hit me, I'd be like, whoa, what's happening, right? The next thing is E for eye. So your vision can go. And our vision is in our occipital lobe, right in the back part of our brain. That's where vision is controlled, which is kind of fascinating. And it's controlled by the blood flow from the back of the neck on up. So I'll tell you this story. The woman and her husband were sitting at home. He's a nurse, and she works in an office somewhere, and she got home around 3:30, 4 o'clock, and he got home around 8. And they're sitting next to each other. She keeps taking her glasses off, taking them off. He goes, baby, what are you doing? She said, there's a spot on my glasses, and I can't get it off. It's bothering me. So he's like, give me those glasses. So he takes them and, for COVID, obviously, magic breath on them, cleans them off and gives them back to her. And she's like, nope, that didn't do it. He's like, give me those glasses back. And she gives him the glasses back, and he says, now, is that spot still there? He's like, yeah. He's like, honey, I think you're having a stroke. And her only symptom was this little black spot that just would not get out of her vision. Isn't that crazy? Crazy. So really important to think about that. So it could be blurred vision. I know sometimes people say, I have floaters pass before my eyes. It's something that comes on suddenly that hadn't been there before. And then F is for facial drooping, numbness, tingling. If you think about going to the dentist, we've all been there, right? We've all gotten a little shot of Novocaine. Our faces have been a little numb. And I'll tell people all the time, when you're sitting at lunch, like each of you are at little tables, and we get to talking and doing our business and maybe not paying attention, you know, who could see now with a mask on? I can't tell if your face is drooping unless your eyeball closes up, right? I can't see it, but I might be able to tell that you can't lift your arm. But I'll also tell people, look for someone tapping their face. Tapping their face, right? Why are you tapping your face? Oh, my face is numb. Is that normal? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No matter how tight your mask is, your face is not going to go numb. It's not going to happen, right? But it can be confusing. And then also I'll tell people if they're wiping their mouth a lot. Somebody starts wiping their mouth. You're pretty young. I'm not going to guess your age, although it's running through my mind right now. But if all of a sudden you kept lifting your mask up, going underneath, Gracie might say to you, what are you doing under there? My mouth is drooling. And you might be slurring words, Gracie going, that is not normal, girl. Are you hydrated? Right, Grace would be like, are you hydrated? Is everything all right? But you really could be having a stroke and that's your only symptom. And then for arm, it's arm weakness. I don't know how I am on time. Are you watching the clock for me, sir? I know, but I don't remember what time this arm is on. Sorry, everyone. I can talk all day, so I always get a timekeeper, but I forgot to ask. Sorry about that. So this other girl, in her early 30s, is at lunch at a wing place somewhere here in town. And there's about 8 of them, and they're at a table pre-COVID. And they're eating their wings, and she keeps dropping her wing. She keeps lifting it up like this. After a few minutes, one of the girls says, girl, pick that wing up and eat it or drop it. Cut it out. Just stop it, right? And the girl says, just keep saying no, no, no. So the rest of them were like, everybody puts their brakes on. Oh no, what happened? She was actually having a stroke in her brainstem. So her friends at lunch could say, oh, at 1 o'clock, she was perfectly fine. We noticed there was a problem at 10 after when she started dropping her wing. Now we've called 911. That's exactly what we want to happen for people to get there quickly. So S is for slurred speech or difficulty speaking. And on the left side of your brain is where speech is controlled. And the back part is the ability to understand. So if I say, young lady with the orange sweater on, can you raise your right hand? Oh, she raised her left hand. But that's okay, right? So she heard me, but she didn't understand me. I think it was pretty clear. But she raised her wrong hand. So I'd be like, oh, well, that's interesting. Can you raise your right foot? Oh, she can. So she understands me part way, but she might not be able to understand, but you can speak. If you're having trouble speaking, you may be able to understand. So it's kind of interesting. It's not just slurred speech from the lip being pulled down and the tongue not being able to function. It actually could be an area of your brain that's affected and you just cannot get the words out. If you're really interested in stroke, Jill Bolte-Taylor is a neurologist, and she does a TED Talk about having a stroke and what her brain was going through during the stroke, and it's really quite fascinating. The craziest thing is she actually pulls a human brain out with a spinal cord attached to it. It's disgusting. But her story is worth it. Even to me, I was like, whoa, go in there, Jill. And then time is everything. So stroke has actual systems of care, and there are different levels, and you get certified, and that certification tells you your greatness. I'm sure in a lot of your businesses you go through the same thing, right? How many sales you have, what your customer service is like, what your product turnover is. All of those things make you a higher standard. Did you win the Columbia Thing of the Year? That's always exciting to me. I like to see who won, just to see her Irma, right? Who in Irma got voted the best, right? Everybody's always looking for that. So the big thing is you want to have services in your area and know where they are to get the best. So we've got a nice relationship with Greenville now. I call them our sisters. We're the prettier sister down here though, sorry, don't tell them. But we both have comprehensive stroke centers, which is what Richland is, and we're up for certification now. And what that means is that we have physicians there 24/7 that can treat your stroke. That we give the medicine called TPA. Y'all heard that? They're going to give me the IV medicine. I always say if they offer it, give it to me. I want it because I've seen it work so many times and change people's lives. But the IV medicine just goes right in the IV and it breaks the clot up in the brain and helps the blood flow better. Very, very exciting. We also have doctors that can go in and get a clot out of your brain. Fascinating. You can go right up in there and pull a clot out. So somebody can come in with total paralysis and not able to function, can't even look at you, and they can give them the TPA and pull a clot out, and 3 days later they can leave. Is that not crazy? Crazy. It's amazing. We've come so, so far in stroke, and there is a time limit on it. So really important to know when the person was last normal. So I would say right now, if we were to look at it, it's 116, and we're all pretty good right now. So if you were to walk to your car, sir, and I don't wish it on you by any chance, but if you were to walk to your car, I haven't seen you walk, so I can't even evaluate that, but say you're dragging your leg as you're going out, your table might be, listen, why are you dragging your leg? You're like, I don't know, my leg is asleep. Is that were your legs crossed? They were crossed, but it's not that leg, you know, kind of interesting. So paying attention, you could say, well, I know that when you walked in here at 1:45, you were fine. So we were talking a little bit about the stroke window, and it was 3.5 hours, but we'll go to 4.5 hours with special circumstances. So can you imagine, you've had it at 10 o'clock, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2. By 2:30, you gotta be there to get the medicine and know that everything's okay. And the ambulances with systems of care, also kind of exciting. We're involved in the Improve project, and we're the only hospital in South Carolina doing that. Richland, fantastic. I keep calling it Richland, I can't help it. But it's looking at ambulances and how EMTs and ambulances know where to go for care. We're part of it with Duke University, so it's very exciting. But calling 911 and call it what it is. If I'm looking, I don't want to wish it on anybody because I certainly don't, but I love your shirt, so I'm going to say it. So if I'm looking and I know what time it is, and then I see you start drooping down and having trouble with your arm, I'm going to call it what I think it is. I think she's having a stroke. Her arm is weak and her face is drooped. I think she's having a stroke. Like, don't be afraid to say it. What's the worst thing that can happen? You get to the hospital a little bit faster. You get brought in, there are a lot of people around you asking questions and checking you over. But guess what? If it's a stroke, you want to be there in that time frame. So I'm going to tell you one last story. I forgot. So we're comprehensive because we have the neuro ICU, and we have the doctors there all the time, and great doctors, great doctors. They treat aneurysms and everything. We're so lucky. And then a primary stroke center has all the capabilities, but not an ICU, and it can't get a clot out, which is what we think Baptist is going to go for soon. Very exciting. And all hospitals and emergency rooms have the medicine, the TPA, to break the clot. They all have it. So it can be done. And we're doing a lot with telemedicine. You know, with COVID, we're all into that, right? Seeing the doctor by the computer. Very helpful. So here's my last story, and I can tell this because he tells it as well. His name is Chuck, and he's at a barbecue. And while he's at the barbecue, he gets stung by a bee. Now he's allergic to bees, and he does not have an EpiPen anywhere near him. So he starts having respiratory trouble, and he calls 911. His wife calls, and his wife says, he's having an allergic reaction, he got stung by a bee. So the ambulance comes there, they check him out, they give him the epinephrine, and the bee sting gets taken care of. Whew, he's feeling better. So the ambulance says, do you want to go to the hospital? No, I don't want to go. I'm totally fine. I just didn't have my pen. I know what to do. I just want to go home and rest. And before the EMT left, she turned around and she said, are you sure you don't want to go? And just as she's looking at him, his face starts to droop. So she's like, what? What's happening? So she says to him, raise your arms. He can't raise his arm, one arm. So she says, listen, I don't want to upset you, but I think you're having a stroke. And everybody's like, what are you talking about? He just got a bee sting. But when he had the bee sting, I don't know if any of you have allergic reactions, but one of the first things your body does to try to save you is increase your heart rate, right? It increases it, makes it go very fast. And when it's going very fast, it's trying to pump itself out, but his also got irregular, and it caused a clot to happen, and the clot went up to his brain and gave him a stroke. So he comes into the hospital, and he's telling me the story, so I was so terrified, but the EMT said, we're going to take you to the best house. Richland of Commerce, the best place. Our house. Boy, I almost said something about Lexington, I won't. They're thrown back to be capable, Lexington is, so they can get a clot out, but if you have trouble, they'll transfer you to us and we'll help you out. But, so the EMT is like, we're going to get you there. You're having a stroke, but we already called it in. He comes in, they meet him at the door, they take him right to CAT scan. It's not a hemorrhage. But by his symptoms and everything we know, we think it's a large vessel occlusion, meaning it's a clot. They give him the TPA and he starts to feel better. But the clot is still kind of hanging there. So they take him in and they get the clot out, and he goes home in 3 days, completely fine. So this gentleman, Chuck Berry of Chuck Berry's Haberdashery, was just about to open up a store in Bowery Parkway, a men's clothing store. He's a fashion designer. And he had put all this money into his store and bought all of this product and was planning this big grand opening. And he said, all I kept thinking in my mind was, I'll never walk again. I'll never sew again. I've just cost my family $100,000 easily on my business that's never going to open. But because everything worked just right, he was now 2 weeks later able to open up his business. Isn't that fascinating? That's a true testament to everything dropping just right, you know what I mean? And later we found out that he had high blood pressure, and he hadn't been taking his medicines because he was feeling great, feeling fine. Everything was good. But that didn't have anything to do with the stroke, right? The one other thing I forgot to talk about was TIA, transischemic attack. If any of you have had that, you don't have to disclose, but what that is that you had symptoms of a stroke and they went away, and when they did the CAT scan and the MRI, there was no damage. But trust me, something happened in your brain. It was a problem. So any of you, no matter what your age is, if you are having trouble moving your arm, not related to a work injury or shoulder misuse, maybe some of you are ball players in here, really think about stroke, because the TIA gives you the symptoms. And I'll have people say to me, 3 days ago, I was in my garden and I couldn't stand up. I said, you couldn't stand up? No, only one leg would work and I couldn't get my hand to push me up off the ground. So I kind of laid there on the ground for a little bit, and then it went away after about 15 minutes. And I always think to myself, oh, no, because now, your highest risk is 30 to 90 days after that happening of having a stroke. And here he was at day 45, 46, had a stroke. But had he come in and gotten checked out, or even called his doctor, because nobody likes to go to the emergency room, especially with COVID right now, not a good time for that. But just call your doctor and say, hey, I had this weird thing happen to me the other day. My whole face went numb for about 10, 15 minutes, and I kind of rested a little while, and then it went away. So the doctor can start running the tests that they need to run. So that's my little tidbit. In your packets too, you have these little cards, and they have stroke and heart attack signs and symptoms on them. Please look at them and share them around. With COVID, we have seen again an increase in stroke and heart attack in our younger generation, so we really want to get the symptoms out there. Then you've got your BFAST magnets if you need them, and overreactive stroke has a lot of different other signs and symptoms of stroke that we might not think about. Also, I do have a few copies of our stroke book. If any of you know someone who's had a stroke and you would like the book. We also have it online, and we collaborated with Upstate this year too, so we could treat these sisters. And so you can get it online if you want to look at it there. We do that a lot with COVID. It was very timely. We just in January got this online, and then COVID hit. So we were able to tell family members, go online, look at the book, and talk to them using the book so they would know what's going on. I do have some TIA books too. Do any of you have any questions? Anything that you're thinking about?
I have one back here.
Oh.
Could you tell us about drugs, about Bell's palsy?
Oh, that's a great question, actually. So Bell's palsy is a nerve involvement. And I always think of Bell's palsy as being external to the brain because it's the nervous system. And it's related to a viral infection that then irritates the nerve that then causes the paralysis. A stroke is internal, inside the brain, under the skull, in the brain tissue itself, with a stoppage of blood flow. We treat it when it comes in exactly the same. It's really rare for a stroke, an ischemic stroke, to just affect the face. It's usually going to affect the face, at least the arm and hand. But that's a great question. So nerve involvement, brain tissue involvement. Yes, ma'am?
Kind of a naive question, but a fellow eye doctor was told to quit working at brainstem. It was about, he was at high risk for stroke.
Mm-hmm.
What about working ourselves to death? We're all type A, hard-working people here.
Right. So I love that you brought that up. And I was telling the gentleman earlier, we both have a right and a left side of our brains, right? We all do. And the left side brain dominant people like to be on time, they don't like to be late, they follow the rules, I pay my bills early. I'm like a total freak. If my husband spends $1, I have to be real careful. We're on our anniversary to not be like, how much do those flowers cost? And just be like, thanks honey, those are great. And the right side of our brain is more active and more ready to go. So I think those of us that are more left brain dominant, which is probably the majority of this room, we have to take time to decompress our brain and let it rest and let it relax. We have to take a moment. I'll tell people sometimes, especially with kids being home from school, God bless any of you that are doing that, go in the bathroom, shut the door, turn the lights off, do not bring your phone, and let your brain recharge itself and decompress itself. Really, really important. Stay hydrated. Posterior strokes, a lot of times, people get dehydrated. Runners are big for posterior strokes because they get dehydrated and then they end up having their balance off, right? But after a run, I don't know if any of you are runners out there, but one day in my life I did do that. All right, so any other questions out there? No? Did everybody get a little raffle ticket? A raffle ticket? If you didn't, I have some up here. I know, a little raffle. Can you imagine? Anybody need one? Anybody else? You'll be the one that did. You need one in the back? So, y'all, thank you for letting me talk to you up there. I'm a wanderer when I talk, and I do much better when I can walk around. I'm more personal. And there's no makeup going on underneath this mask, so the mascara is all I got. Anybody else?
So Helen's got a couple of door prizes she's about to draw. And then we'll end in song.
Is there any more? I think good ones.
Okay, I think Mr. Cannon, Dr. Cannon.
Just call me 3 times a day.
All right, the numbers are pretty much going to be the same, I think, except for the last three. All right, that's not a true statement. Okay, it's a 412013. No.
He gave me his ticket and started thinking.
Shouldn't have left early.
All right, 411990. All right, thank you all so much. I'm going to be over here a little bit if you have other questions. And I do have cards and stuff too, so if you want to reach out to me independently, you can do that as well.
Thank you so much, Helen. That was very informative and probably life-saving in the future. And if you do want to run for office, you're ticketed here, you've been here, so you're legit. Just let us know. Thank you so much. We do have a little thank you from Columbia Rotary Club. I'll wipe it down. Little pin.
I thought it was going to be a clock.
No, you did great. You're fine.
All right. We have President-elect, who's our speaker next week. If you want to announce the December 7th speaker, you can for the Rotary meeting, for
Sure.
the Discover Rotary.
Next week, we'll hear from Senator Richard Dick Harpootlian, and that will be next Monday. And then the Monday, well, Discover Rotary, we've got one meeting before Discover Rotary. That'll be Dr. Tom Bogard at Columbia College. But our Discover Rotary speaker will be Alex English, retired basketball.
Okay, so Senator Dick Harpootlian next Monday,
Yeah.
and then on the Discover Rotary Day, December 7th, we will have Alex English here. So please bring prospective members and guests. We will end in some